Hi there. Hey, I just wanted to check in with you very, very quickly and introduce you here to the new save. So after getting completely blown out there at the end in Ingolstadt, rather than giving up and forgetting about the whole thing and the whole project, I decided to come up with another save quickly here. I did a little bit of searching around on the workshop on Steam for Football Manager 2023 and found a number of somewhat interesting leak files that were created in China, including the one that we're going to look at now. So here we are. We're going to be playing with Yanbian FC. This is going to be a much more of a fictional save than the save that we just saw, in large part because Yanbian FC doesn't exist anymore. It was a club in the Chinese Super League up until I believe it was either late 2018, early 2019, something like that, when it went bankrupt and no longer exists. Just a little bit of background. Yanbian is the Yanbian Korean Autonomous Region, which is part of Jilin Province in China, right on the border with North Korea. This Yanbian team, theoretically at least, plays here at the Yanji Sports Center Stadium that you can see on the screen. I've been to Yanji, actually. I know it fairly well, and I know that part of the world fairly well. It's a very interesting place to be for many reasons that will soon become very obvious. But so you're aware, this is going to be quite fictional for a number of reasons. I was initially hoping to combine this database with the work that Dave INCID has done in his most recent update, especially involving China, finances for teams in China. Unfortunately, the two were not compatible, and my ignorance of the pregame editor prohibited me today from completely solving that issue. And so I have made a couple of very, very slight modifications here, which you can sort of see on the screen. We've done a couple of things here to make it a little bit more interesting as we go forward and hopefully prevent this save from crashing and burning after 15 episodes, but I suppose we'll see what happens. We'll see what really is going on. So as you can see, this is still going to be the same skin that we were using before, which means, again, that there are no attributes. And no star ratings. I have gone through the players already and have put many markings on all of the players who have issues such as consistency issues, dislike of big matches, and really nobody's super injury prone on this, which is good. That's a nice welcome change. You can also see here the personalities that we have a team mostly filled with unambitious players or players with low determination, low self-belief. So changes are afoot, especially in terms of transactions. Now, one of the things that I've done here for fun is we have turned the finances of this Yanbian team around. So as originally presented in this Chinese language database, Yanbian was about 30 million pounds in debt, or 30 million euros in debt, one of the two. I'm going to change this probably over soon. Now they instead have a high bank balance and a very large, unusually large wage budget for a team in the third tier of the Chinese league and a large transfer budget. The owner is very interested in the way that the squad is and is of the type that will be sort of what we used to call a foreground sugar daddy, which I think is now a foreground benefactor, I think is what the term is. I don't have the in-game editor on, so I have no way of letting you know that directly, but that is the background of this save, mostly for fun, mostly to see what will happen, and yes, as you can guess, probably in part sort of psychological way of getting revenge in the game for that 7-0 drubbing at the hands of 1860 München. You can see club vision is interesting. We want to work within the wage budget. That's not going to be hard. Spend the original transfer budget is going to be a little bit harder. I wonder if you see this, if that isn't a sign that your club has some sort of rich backer or that your owner is sort of a Mr. Moneybags and maybe you don't fully realize it. I say that now, right now, as many of you know, heaven forbid I praise or endorse another YouTube creator, but Lelugio right now is trying to figure out whether he wants to stay at Preston North End or go to Tottenham. And what I think he doesn't fully realize is that when he saw the spend the original transfer budget there at Preston North End, when they gave him like £100 million or something like that, that might be the sign that he has somebody in the club in high places who has a lot of money and who wants to win at all costs. I mean, he's probably going to make the decision before I even put this video out, but that's something to consider. If that happens in your saves, you might want to think about it. I just hope that we gain automatic promotion at the end of this season, which hopefully won't be a huge problem. It won't be competitive in this China Cup, and so on and so forth. And as always, we cannot sign non-Chinese goalkeepers. That is still in force, as is usually the case with China teams, unless you're using databases that make huge changes, such as World Super League. And I think we still have a couple months before that will come out. They want to sign high reputation players, which is something that I usually struggle with. I like to hire young players, as do almost all football managers. A couple other interesting things I want to show you here, not in the schedule, but in the competition. So the rules have changed. The Chinese person who created this, and I'll have to send him a message thanking him for this, the creator was very, very kind to us and has allowed us in the second division here, so the third rung, to have up to 15 foreign players in the squad, up to 8 foreign players in the playing 11, and we can have up to 20 on the squad overall, registered for the squad, and there's a maximum squad size of 50 players, which is also quite generous. And what that means is that while we can't go necessarily nuts and turn the team into Brazil, we can get a lot of good quality players without having to worry about really restrictive transfer rules. This is a little bit better than the more realistic rule, which I think is 3 or 5, one of the two on one of the two situations. And this far down, I mean, it might not even be feasible. When you go up to the first division, this is where it's a little bit weird. It changes to no more than 13 foreign players in the match squad, though the rules about 8 of 11 have to be Chinese players goes away. And then when you go up to the Super League, the rules go back to 15. So go figure that one out on your own. And then there's a maximum of 25 foreign players on your squad, which, of course, is no problem. Most of us aren't going to have squads with more than 25 players at all. Another thing to show really quickly, and this is one of the odd things about this. So the file that I got said ruo. There were, in Chinese, there were 2 different files, one without the ruo and one with it. Ruo means basically enter Europe. And so what has happened here is the entire structure of the world has changed so that now this China Super League is part of Champions League now. This isn't England. Instead, China has to qualify through the qualifying round path for all of this, including the Champions League, the Conference League, and it looks like that's all that they get into, actually. There's a nice payout if you finish in these places, and there's always the possibility of more later on. But just so you know, that's kind of what we're looking at potentially in the future should we make it that way. So there's a lot of interesting things going on in the save, and there's a lot of interesting history behind this club. And of course, as you can see here, if you can read it, most of you probably can't, this is Yanbian, which is the Korean phrase for Yanbian. I speak, in real life, actually, I do speak Korean and Chinese. So for me, there's a natural attraction to this team for many, many reasons. In fact, back in the good old days before the pandemic, in FM20, I wanted to do a save with Yanbian FC. And back then, as I recall, you had to use the first version of the database to be able to still play with the team. It was either that or you would use some user-created China database that had the lower leagues. And you know how some of those go. Some of those are good, some of those are not. The one that I had, unfortunately, was one of the ones that were not quite so good. Anyway, hardcore rules will mostly apply here, that we're going to soften them up a little bit. I will admit that when it comes to tactics, I'm not very confident in my skills. As a result, I went back onto our favorite part of the Sports Illustrated forums, looked up the Knapp tactics, and came up with one of the newer ones that he has come out with. Interesting, I didn't notice that this was balanced, but it is. With the 2 segundo volante midfielders, defensive midfielders, that is. So we'll see how this works. We don't have a squad that's really built around that, but as you can see with all of my little flags, we have a squad that really needs to be sort of cycled through, and we're going to need to do some scouting. This will be very interesting to play with. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of playing style this is. And honestly, for me, it may still be advisable to use a variety of different tactics first before I do too much exploring on my own. But you can let me know what you think about that in the comments. So that is another rule that we are changing. However, I'm not going to change the rules about not looking at any sort of attributes and trying to treat the game as realistically as possible. My honest opinion about this and downloaded tactics tactics is that it's perfectly fine and that there's really no big problem with it. I think there's a lot of sensitivity about this that really has no purpose and no sense. I think because if you're making your own tactic, you're likely going to use a pre-configured tactic that Sports Interactive is giving you anyway. Either that or you're going to copy something that somebody at some point in time has done in real life. I fail to see the difference or why there's so much controversy about this. Now, another thing is that here I'll show you how, if you don't know how to import a schedule, this is the way to import a schedule. This is actually the 2022 version, I guess, of the evidence-based football manager training program. We're going to continue to use this. I don't know if Max has changed this or not, but this training schedule, which may look a little bit sparse to you, in my opinion, is the best anywhere. I am going to use this from now on until there is some sort of change or some sort of reason not to. In my personal opinion, and having worked with this in several saves, this gets your young players to grow much faster and at a much more agreeable sort of clip and level, and with fewer injuries than anything else I've tried. It works extremely well, and it's worked extremely well every single club I've tried it at. So that's my other recommendation for you, and that's really for the most part about it. We're going to, of course, change things up in the staff. As you can see, we don't have enough staff to fill all of the roles. We don't have enough scouts to find the players that we want to get. Our club does have some reputation, but it's not huge. Here's the club info screen. I'm just looking here really quick. I don't think that there's anything here generally about reputation. You can see if you look close, the history of the club goes up to 2017-2018, which is the last time that the club actually played in China. Afterwards, the club just disappeared because they went bankrupt. The reputation here is national. There is a professional squad personality, which is an interesting thing to see because we have a lot of players that look like they're lacking in professionalism, so we'll figure out what's going on there. Yes, the finances are rich. The owner loves the club and keeps pouring money into it. 6,000 season ticket holders. Our stadium, that'd be here under facilities, is a 30,000 all-seater. That's at the Yanji Sports Center Stadium, which I have driven by actually a few times. I don't think I realized it at the time. I guess we're training at the old Hailanjiang grounds. It's another team that was earlier in Yanji. There are a lot of problems there, a lot of things that are going on. Look at this, and we do have affiliate clubs. We are an affiliate of Dalian Pro, it looks like April 25th. That would be Sa Ishipo in Sawol Ishipoil in North Korea happens to be an affiliate club of ours, which is very interesting because this means that we'll probably get a number of North Korean players, young players, coming in as well. So this is going to be a real interesting save, I think, to watch and to play with, and should be fun. I think that we'll probably have a little bit more success here. I decided to give my person a little bit more experience so that we don't have some of the same problems that we had before. This should be a lot of fun. Hope that you stick around for this, and I'm going to do a whole bunch of transfers and a whole bunch of work on this, and we'll see how things work with episode 1. Talk to you later. Bye.